In this section, we're going to talk about how to organize your ideas and your thoughts. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my system and what works. And I'm going to try to tell you some of the things that you just absolutely have to do. But at the end of the day, if you're dedicated to this craft and you really want to get better at it, you're going to have to develop your own organizational system that works for you. In this section, though, I'm going to show you what works for me and what's worked for me over the last 20 years and how it's evolved. The first thing that you want to do before you work with anything else is you probably need to stop this lesson and go collect all of your stuff. And I'm guessing that stuff could be from a voice recorder app. It could be from an actual voice recorder. It could be from a camcorder, or it could be from a phone where you videotaped yourself doing something. It could be from the Notepad application. It could be from a Word document that you have on your laptop, a Word document that you have on your desktop, a document or an email that you have on your work computer. I'm saying collect all of it and put it in front of you so that you can really begin to understand how many different ways you can capture ideas and how quickly it is that you can lose those ideas. If you don't have that many ideas, stop right there. If you don't have that many ideas to collect, there's no reason for you to develop an organizational system yet. What you really need to do is you need to write. And the first thing that you need to write with is a notebook that you can carry with you anywhere and everywhere. And not everybody has that ability, so we'll talk about that in a little bit, but you need to have a notebook that's really there to take the notes that you want to take anytime that you have an idea, because it's so important that hopefully up to this point you've had some experience with writing and you understand that when you're in the shower, when you're going to bed, when you're waking up, those are 3 times that you have really good ideas. And those are the 3 times that you absolutely don't want to make yourself dry off or wake up to write down that information. But those are some of your best jokes and some of your best ideas. So you need to have a notebook on you at all times. I carry one with me, and I carry a briefcase everywhere that I go. So it's kind of funny that I, do comedy for a living, but I still carry the same briefcase that I've had for probably 10 or 11 years. Looks beat to shit, but that's okay. You need a notebook that you can write all your ideas in. And then the particular notebook that I use, so I recommend that you get a notebook, something similar to this. It's not a full-size 8.5 by 11 notebook. It's a little bit smaller. It's got, the reason why I really like it is it's got pocket slots in the middle here. So if I end up coming up with ideas that are really good, but I didn't have my notebook on me at the time, I could jot it down on a spare piece of paper, on a napkin, on a piece of toilet paper, it doesn't matter. Put it in my pocket and know that the next time I connect with my notebook, I can open it up and I can put that idea in here. So you need a central place to collect all of your thoughts. And the only reason, hopefully you understand it without me having to explain it, but you want to be able to have a place where you can revisit all of your notes. The other thing that you're going to want to do when you are writing down ideas or premises is write down the date. So what's the date? And start writing. Then when you're done writing, you can review what you wrote and you can write a few keywords at the top. Thanksgiving, mom, and aliens. Great. So when you go back to sift through your notebook, you can just see what the subject words were. So if you're trying to put other ideas together from other jokes or other premises that you have, you've got it right there in your notebook. This right here is the most basic and simplest way to collect your thoughts and keep your set together. Is you absolutely positively have to download at least once a week. So you have to go into your notebook and read and highlight everything that you think is interesting, and then start a new section where you develop and you edit some of those ideas and jokes into things that you want to try in an open mic night in the coming week. And I hope that makes sense to you. Now, what I've done over the years is I've had to really expand the way that I organize things. Is I use Google Docs. Google Docs is completely free. I highly recommend using it. The only downside to Google Docs is once your document gets to be over 75 pages, it gets very slow and cumbersome. So every so often, you got to create a new Google Doc. But within your Google Documents, you can have a folder full of all of your stand-up comedy. Now, the reason why you never want to get rid of your ideas is, even if you think it's a bad idea today, is it may be ahead of its time. But your ideas and your premises and your thoughts are your lifeline. And if you don't have full access to those, you're going to feel like you're starting over every single time that you write. So I recommend a few things to help you out. First, invest in a smartphone. If you've invested in this class, invest some more money and go get yourself a smartphone. I have an iPhone. This right here has completely changed my life. And I don't know, every 2 or 3 years I spend $300-400 on a new phone. But my phone is everything to me. It's a voice recorder, so I can open it up and I can dictate all of my ideas. I don't have to write anything in my notebook at that time. I can let all my ideas flow out and it records in the voice recorder. I've got a camera. So here's the other thing. If I do write a note on a napkin or a note card or a random piece of paper, instead of carrying that piece of paper around and possibly losing it because it's in my pockets or I pull it out or it ends up in the wash, take a picture of it. Great. Everything's coming back to the phone. Some people really like to use what's called the Notepad application on their iPhone. I don't know what that is for an Android, but it's essentially a place where you can jot down notes. Great. That's a nice place that you can put down notes. I use the Google Docs application if I'm going to transcribe anything with my phone. But generally, anytime I'm using Google Docs, I come back to my laptop where I listen to everything that I voice recorded for the week and transcribe it into the document. Anything that came off of my phone and the pictures, I put that into the Google document as well. But there's a ton of other applications that people use to organize their thoughts and ideas. One really popular one is Evernote. Evernote is one where you can take recordings and you can take pictures, and it lives on a cloud. And cloud writing is such an advantage for you because if you begin to save, say, Microsoft Word documents on your laptop, but you want to access those jokes for an open mic, you typically have to print that information or you have to attach it to an email it to yourself so that it's on your phone when you're ready to do your material. Whereas if everything sits on a Google document, you can access Google Docs from anywhere at any time. Even if you don't have access with your phone or with your computer, you can log on to somebody else's computer. I'm a huge advocate of cloud computing. I also subscribe to Microsoft Office 365. It's $8 a month, and it is also cloud computing. Gives you the ability to check your Microsoft Outlook email from anywhere. Word, Excel, all these documents that are live updated. I talk a lot about this because if there's one way to get burnt out from stand-up comedy, it's to feel like you have to keep starting over. I'm passionate about this. I hope that you can see that because your organization is going to be what makes or breaks you. I can't tell you how many times I've been at open mic nights with people or been at even shows with people and they've lost their notebook and their notebook has all of their jokes in it. It is brutal. So yeah, have an analog notebook with you, but be dedicated to, for me, it's Sunday nights after I put the kids to bed. I go into all of my material, I download it into my computer, and then I take a look at things that I want to present for the next open mic night or the next show that I'm looking to do. Google Docs, and even Microsoft Word allows this as well to their defense, but Google Docs allows you to just search for a word. So if I want to talk about my mother, I could type in mom. And it'll go through the whole document and find every single time that I've mentioned my mother. So I no longer have to organize within the document. I can just know that every time I transcribe, I put in the date so I can have an idea as to what date I came up with that idea or that premise, and I move along from there. You're going to end up creating 3 documents in Google Docs if you really want to be organized. And the first document is just raw material. Just name it raw material. And then when you have to create another document, call it raw material 2. And I would recommend putting the date with it as well so that you can kind of know what's in there. The downside is it's harder to search within there, but you can search within multiple documents. And that's just what it is it's raw material. There's a good chance that the older it gets, the less you're going to frequent it because the nature of your comedy has changed over time. But it's just that it's raw material. Simultaneously, you're going to open up a second document. And that second document is going to be working. Just call it working. So that second document is just going to be called working. What that means is you're going to take all of the ideas that came from your raw material, you're going to move them over to working, and you're going to, guess what? Work those. And take those ideas and craft them into jokes. Those are the things that you're going to go try in your open mic. Once you try those jokes, any of them that work, after you've done them a handful of times in front of an audience, you will then move them into a third document called, guess what? Your set. So you'll have 3 documents: your raw material, your working, and then your set. And the way that you're going to develop your set from this point on is you're going to have your very best, hardest hitting jokes, the ones that get significantly more laughs than the rest, at the top. And your least funny jokes are going to fall to the bottom. So that way you can rank your material so that when somebody says, do your best 5, you've got it. And then over time, you'll learn on your own, but I'll tell you what this is. You're going to need a tight 3-minute set. You're going to need a tight 5-minute set. You're going to need a 10-minute set, a 15-minute set, a 20 to 25-minute set, and then a 35 to 45-minute set. And if you're working in rooms where they're allowing you to do more than 20 minutes, you don't need this class anymore. So that's the good news. I've probably said it before, but I'll say it again. You'll always open with your strongest joke and close with your second strongest joke. You're always going to create bookends when you're hitting the stage so that you can capture the audience's attention right away and say, hey, listen, guys, I know what I'm doing. I'm good. So if any of your jokes in the middle don't necessarily hit, the audience will still stay with you because they remember that first joke. And then if your set isn't necessarily the greatest, you've tried a lot of new stuff, for whatever reason it falls apart, you close with a joke that you know always does well. So at the end of your set, as you walk off stage, the audience only remembers the last thing that you said. So you could have a 30-minute fantastic set, and if your last 2 minutes are terrible, that's kind of what they remember. So pay attention to that as you're organizing all of your material. Okay. For those of you that just aren't as comfortable with technology as you're organizing things, that's okay. I'd assume that you're probably a little bit more diligent in your life with being able to file things, catalog things anyway, if you have yet to adopt technology. I found over the years that I used to be very organized when it came to papers and folders and filing things away. But once I discovered technology, I'm really terrible with paperwork. So if it doesn't exist on my computer, I really have a tough time finding it. However, with the analog version of writing, you need 3 notebooks. You need a notebook that's just nothing but all of your raw material. Then you need a notebook that is your working material. And then you need your set list. Problem is that you pretty much always got to carry around your raw material notebook with you when you have ideas. And you should probably carry your set list around with you as well, so that if there's ever an opportunity for you to do some time, you can peek into that notebook and see what you have. Now, I've told you all about organization, and here's one thing that I know probably for a fact, and you and I have never met, and this is a pre-recorded session, you probably haven't written enough yet. So before I give you a task regarding organization, and before you get tempted to create this beautiful organizational system, I want you to write 1,250 words. Do 5 different sessions at 250 words apiece. Go hit 2 open mics. If you can do that, then you have permission to come back and set up your organizational system.